we're all very close. We get together all the time. We meet. We discuss. No one is allowed to go into business for himself or herself. So that's the whole idea.
No, amazing journey.
It is an amazing journey. The journey continues.
Yeah, of course.
It never ends. If you have a son star today, Cheryl has been really
Cheryl Alba.
Yeah, prominently mentioned shown there in the article.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In a few moments, we're going to go live. Actually, we already are live. In fact, I think we should start right now. Right? Let's not dilly-dally. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Pilosopo podcast with my host. I always love to call this person next to me entrepreneur extraordinaire, Mr. Bonnie Pajes.
Hi, Jiggy, and hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Before anything else, I'd like to thank our good friends from the Dessert Factory for the coffee, this Italian and smooth coffee. It's actually an Italian blend, and the dessert, of course. They have a branch actually at El Curso Philinvest Life Malls. You're going to go check it out. Okay, Bunny, first and foremost, as always, my first question, take us through the journey from your childhood days leading up to this moment right here, right now. Give us the long version of the story of how you became an entrepreneur.
Well, I don't want to start since I was born.
Okay.
But let me start off. Just
that's too long, right?
That's too long. Just a little over 20 years ago,
Okay.
I made a really big decision by quitting a very lucrative and a very successful job as the head of the Visayas and Mindanao for a Canadian life insurance company called the Manufacturers Life Insurance of Canada.
Okay.
At the time, I was turning 50 years old, so it was quite late to start a business. And at the time, I was already about 24 years with the company. I was head of the Visayas and Mindanao, and I had about, if I remember correctly, I think about 70 agents scattered all over the Visayas and Mindanao selling life insurance. And despite that, I stopped and started our own business from scratch. And so many people thought that it was stupid or crazy to do it, but I wasn't happy anymore, Jig. And I just realized, and I getting to know myself a little bit more, if I'm not happy with what I'm doing, if I'm not passionate, I don't want to do it. So I stopped, and we started a small business.
Okay.
We bought Thirsty Juices and Shakes. At the time. It was just 2 outlets. We bought it from the family of the Osmeñas, the family of Renato Osmeña, who was a vice mayor at the time, from his daughter, Margie, who's now a Dino. And that's how we started. We also started a school with my family, my Playhouse Children's Center. And that's how the whole thing just started to grow and grow, and we concentrated on the business together with my children.
But sorry to interrupt you, but I know you don't want to tell me the short story when you were born and all that stuff.
I can do that because that has also some very important lessons.
What do you think? Was it in your childhood, maybe when you were a teenager, when you were in school? What do you think prepared you for this, for being an entrepreneur?
Well, everything that you do in life really prepares you for something, whether it's a
Absolutely.
good thing or a bad thing. But I was growing up with a very strong sense of inferiority complex, believe it or not. 2 reasons. I was very skinny, I was so thin, and I was a stammerer. So when I was in the elementary, my classmates in the University of San Carlos in Boys High School used to tease me. They used to call me skeleton. And that was very, very bad. So what I did something about it. I went to the gym. There was a gym there in in downtown. It's called Mr. Philippines because it was owned by a Mr. Philippines winner. I forgot his name, but the thing is, so I pumped iron until I was about 20 years old. So when I was 20 years old, I was big enough to join a physique contest at the YMCA called the Junior Mr. Visayas.
Okay.
And I was so proud. I placed 4th.
Fourth place.
Yeah, 4th place. There were only 4 contestants, but the thing is, that sort of really developed in me the habit of exercise and taking good care of my body, which I tried to do really all these years.
Okay.
So the second one is I was a stammerer. I didn't have any confidence in myself, but I realized that to be able to succeed in this world, you have to be able to communicate well. I mean, what are good ideas if you're not able to communicate them effectively with your fellow man? So what I did was I sort of practiced and practiced and practiced. You see, good speaking, Jiggy, and you know that very well.
Of course, yeah.
Your product of it is just practicing and imitating and and trying to listen to yourself and keep on improving. So that's basically what I did. So eventually I became better, and even today I still feel that I'm still getting better. So it's practice, imitation, and practice, imitation, and correcting yourself until you become the best you can ever be. So that's how I started. But I think the most important thing that I acquired in life is what it's called now a growth mindset. I'm constantly always feeling that I want to improve myself in everything that I do. And in fact, there's a book that came out recently, just a few years ago, written by a Stanford psychology. She's world famous now. Her name is Carol Dweck. And she wrote a book called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. And Dr. Carol Dweck, discovered through extensive experiments, including children and adults and successful and unsuccessful people, that there are two kinds of mindsets in the world. Just two. Fixed mindsets and growth mindsets. Now, fixed-minded people are people who have to constantly keep on proving themselves that they're good. To them, the ability to improve is sort of fixed, and they're scared to try new things. But the growth-minded people are people who are constantly always trying to improve themselves, to better themselves. And that's I think that is one of the most important things that I've learned. It is to always constantly grow and to become better at anything that I do.
In this book that you read, let's sidetrack for a little bit because that sounds like a very interesting subject.
It is
matter.
a very, very interesting subject.
So there are two kinds of people: the people with growth mindsets and the people with fixed mindsets.
Yes.
So at what point do their minds get fixed at a later age in their lives, or in the beginning they refuse to learn new things?
Excellent question. Well, she discovered this, Carol Dweck, is that when we keep on praising children, and we thought that this is the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. We keep on praising children that they're good, they're bright, they're beautiful, they're handsome, they're very talented. We thought originally that would really motivate them to become better.
Okay.
And her discovery, her research, validated something different. When you tell your kids that you're really good, you're great, keep on what you're doing, their tendency is to just keep on proving that they're really that good, and they don't want to try other new stuff anymore because they're afraid to fail. Whereas
they want to prove to their parents that they're good at that one thing, that they're
at one thing, or they want to stay that way because
Okay.
they're scared to make mistakes.
Okay.
Now, to grow, you know that you have to keep on trying new things.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do things outside of the box,
Uh-huh.
and you cannot be a growth-minded person unless you make mistakes, unless you fail. And the only way to fail is to try new things. I mean, if you keep on doing the same thing over and over again, you won't fail. So the new research has validated that we need to encourage our children not to keep on doing the same thing, but to keep on trying new things. And even if they fail, they still can continue to do it because they can learn so many things and they can get better.
So not praise them all the time. Is that
Not
what you're
praise
saying?
them all, praise them, but not praise them too much.
Or not all the time?
Not all the time, but praise them.
Or maybe let them fail at the same time too?
That's correct. So that's the irony of it, because we thought that if you keep on praising them, they will continue to become better. The opposite happens. They get afraid to make mistakes because if they make a mistake, they don't get praised anymore.
But I wonder if a failure at an early age could also be traumatic, or could destroy the child forever.
Definitely, and also it depends on the parents, how the parents would deal with that.
Okay, but we're not just talking about the parents here. We're also talking about the educational system as well, right? Because some schools, I don't know if Bright Academy or Playhouse is part of it, actually give awards and credit to everybody. So there's like the first honor and the 10th honor and the 100th honor. Everybody's a winner.
It's part of our system. We know that.
Everybody gets a smiley face or something like that.
Of course.
So everybody thinks that they didn't do anything wrong all day. No matter how bad or
You get a star on your
or something like that, right?
right.
Is that a flawed way of raising children? You think so, Bunny? And have you tried to sort of correct that in your particular school?
It's got to be balanced.
Okay.
It's got to be balanced. I remember raising up my children. I sort of learned on this concept of positive reinforcement.
Okay.
Try to catch them when they're doing something right
Okay.
instead of always catching them when they're doing something wrong, right?
Okay.
So, like, for example, if your son or your child does something right, that's a time when you point it out and hope that they'll do more of it. Now, try to just minimize or not even talk about if they make something wrong, minimize it, and that to avoid, and if it happens again, that's the time when you correct. But the most important thing, I think, is to be conscious of the fact that either you're a growth-minded person or you're a fixed-minded person. But this can be corrected.
Okay,
But awareness, I think, is very
But
important.
is it in your operating system, Bunny? Do you mean that a person is born fixed-minded? Thus, maybe they become like conservatives, and those growth-minded people, they become like liberal, or they want to do many things and different things and try out everything. Are these things sort of in your operating system when you're born? Is it genetic?
Very good point. Well, we're all products of our environment, right?
Okay.
To a large extent.
Okay.
Of course, there's genes that you have to consider, but to a large extent, the environment plays a very important role or
sure,
part
yeah.
in who we are. And in my particular case, well, I'm the eldest of the family, so in a way, being the eldest, you're expected to lead.
Okay.
So that's what happened, and I was not a difficult child. I was not a difficult child. So, but the most important thing is I don't know whether I had an innate desire to keep on getting better and to keep on improving, despite the fact that I had an inferiority complex. I kept on reading books. I kept on talking to people, learning from them.
Okay.
And that's part of the journey, Jig. And
So-
even though I started late in business, so in some way, I had to rush a little bit because I knew that I didn't have much time. Had I started at the age of 25, that would have been, 25 years earlier than 50?
So you corrected your lanky physique and you went to the gym. You corrected your speech impediment. You're being a stammerer, and studied speaking and learned from the best. And but still, what prepared you to become an entrepreneur? Like having a nice physique and speaking well does not, guarantee someone to succeed in this crazy business of being in business for yourself or being an entrepreneur. What made you think? What do you think, Bunny, prepared you for being an entrepreneur in your early years?
Well, I think being in sales.
Okay.
Being in sales. When I finished chemical engineering at the University of San Carlos, there were options in what to do. I could have gone and worked at a factory
Okay.
and become an engineer. Because I finished chemical engineering and I passed the board exams. Like many of my classmates worked for factories and manufacturing plants. I did not. So I joined a company called Mobil Oil Philippines, and I was in sales. So I went around, talked to the customers, went to the dealer stations, and dealt with the dealers. And I spent 5 years there. So I learned marketing, I learned selling, I learned how to deal with people,
Okay.
and how to close sales.
Okay.
Then I left Mobil Oil and joined the life insurance industry. Now, the first thing I learned in the life insurance industry, and it was very ingrained in my mind, was I was told, think about your mission. Do not think about your commission. Very important. Think more of your mission and less of your commission. So when I went into business, the focus had always been to create satisfied customers. In fact, that's what we always do. Even if we open a new outlet and it does well, I don't say, okay, is our sales good? I looked at the sales. I always ask our people, are we developing satisfied customers? Because, Jiggy, if you continue to develop satisfied customers, more customers will come to your place of business. In the same way now, when people listen to your podcast, your Pilosopo podcast, when they hear good things and they learn something and they enjoy it and they benefit from it, more and more people will come. So your objective, like any business, is to develop more satisfied customers. So I think to answer your question, having been in sales for several years, I think I would say, and also training salespeople, sort of prepared me a lot to be in business.
Being in sales, especially in your context, because you were selling for a lubricant company, and you were selling insurance
Yes.
for a French. You mentioned
No, a
Dutch
Canadian-
company,
a Canadian company.
You were selling for somebody else in a way.
Yes.
You weren't selling your own products. Now, an entrepreneur sells his own products, right? You pretty much make the product, and then you sell it. That's what an entrepreneur is. You control your time. You control. This is your own business now. Um, is being an entrepreneur? Is everybody cut out to becoming an entrepreneur, or just like the one that you mentioned, the fixed-minded and the improvement-minded people? Is there also a kind of person that is more geared towards becoming an entrepreneur, and there are those who will be more satisfied working for somebody else?
Well, I think there are less people who become entrepreneur than not. But I think in my particular case, if I were to talk about in my particular case, being able to sell myself. Because you see, when you sell life insurance, you're really selling yourself first. You're selling trust. You're selling rapport. You're selling a product that is just a promise. And people will never buy from you unless they're convinced that you are a good person to deal with. I think something like that has helped us a lot in our businesses because you
Okay.
see, like we have restaurants. In the first place, Jiggy, you cannot open a restaurant unless you have location. You have to build that particular concept. And when we are negotiating for locations, for example, people have to trust us that we would be able to pay the rent, that we can generate the business so that that lease will stay, right? So I think being able to sell myself and learning from the life insurance industry has helped us a lot in our business.
Would you say that a entrepreneur is a risk taker?
Well, if you were to ask me what is an entrepreneur, because there are so many different
Yes, of course,
definitions, and people ask me, Bunny, what is the difference between a businessman and an entrepreneur? To me, an entrepreneur, three things very important. Number one, an entrepreneur sees a business opportunity
Okay.
and then he pursues it. That's one. Secondly, he's willing to take a risk. And thirdly, he builds an organization to pursue it. I think someone who puts up a business but doesn't grow that business, to me, is not an entrepreneur. He's a businessman. So to me, an entrepreneur is always growth, expansion, conscious. He builds an organization. And I don't know how I became an entrepreneur. I was raised, like many of us Filipinos, raised to be employees.
So did you have like folks, parents, relatives, perhaps family members that were entrepreneurs? Did you see, an aunt or an uncle perhaps open his own business when you were young?
No,
None of that.
no. I think I got a lot of these from reading books
Okay.
and observing people and talking to people, and also studying. So I'm a reader, and I encourage a lot of people now to read. Now reading is a lost art basically, but reading makes you really it changes your perspective on so many things. Traveling has also helped a lot. But the thing is, to me, an entrepreneur is someone who constantly grows his business. So if you have someone there who has been there in that location for 20 years and hasn't grown, still the same thing. To me, that person is not an entrepreneur. He's a businessman. He has a business, but he's not an entrepreneur.
When you say growth, when does it end? When does growth end? Like for example, a business. Let's say a Thirsty, for example, one of your first entrepreneurial ventures, right? When does it end? Will it end when there's a Thirsty in every corner of the world? Is growth, a success for a business, a figure, a few $billion in the coffers? What is growth, and when does growth end? When do you say that I've got to stop growing, man?
Very good question, Jiggy. Literally, no. You're familiar with Phil Knight, right? Phil Knight
Nike.
Phil Knight is the founder of Nike, and I read his book. It's called Shoe Dog. And he said, one of his quotations there, really it struck me. He said, don't stop. Don't ever think of stopping until you get there. But do not mind where there is.
Yes. Okay.
So you just have to keep on continuing, and if there's an opportunity, you go. But you have to be, of course, selective. You cannot be everywhere and anywhere because our resources are always limited. So to answer your question, to me, there's no stopping to growth as long as you're prepared, as long as you're ready. In fact, we just opened a new company. We're calling it Fix Masters, Cebu Fix Masters. We're gonna do some repairs. We're gonna do some contracting work for specialty projects. So that's an offshoot of what we're doing in our own company because we already have several restaurants, we have several outlets, and we have a school. and we need to maintain all of these facilities well. So
Okay.
from our own experience, we're now spinning off this company. So that's another opportunity. Another opportunity that we're seriously looking at is to really go big time on catering, the food catering.
You can focus on one thing, and because you said that as that Phil Knight quote would say, as long as you don't mind where there is, you can keep on growing, right?
Yes.
You could have done that. You could have chosen a narrow path of, let's say, pursuing, let's say, one part of your business. Let's just say thirsty, because that's one of the first that I know. You could have done that, but you chose to diversify. You chose to open a restaurant. You chose to open this and that. Why didn't you focus? And what made you think that you should, in a way, diversify?
You know what, Jiggy? I have five kids, five children, and what I did, is just allowed. First of all our businesses, all our ventures, we're all together. The whole family, we're all together. There's no one who has a business that's separate. I don't have a business for myself. John, Randy, Charlie, Cheryl, and Michael, we don't have businesses that are separate from the family. So what happened was, when we started into business, we started into the restaurant business. Charlie was the one who brought up this business to us, or brought us this business when we started Moon Cafe in 2007. And then we opened Lantau in Cordova, and then the rest we just opened. Well, we also got interested in the lechon business, and Cheryl, my daughter, was the one who handled that. We also got a franchise for taters in Ayala. Now we have 3 or 4 outlets, and Cheryl handles that. So, and Michael, we bought this Sushi Boy company from scratch from another company, and now we're growing that too. And John has opened Fruitful from Thirsty. So each one, they run their own brands.
Okay.
And from those brands, they opened several other branches. So that's the reason. But it's fun. People have said, why are you not concentrating on one? But again, we have different talents, we have different personalities, and each one is now actually focusing on their own brands. And it's also good because we're diversified. We're into the food. But again, Randy, my third son, is a Don Bosco graduate. He's also he's a guy who's also likes construction and doing things. So that's why he's also handling now our repair and maintenance company and our construction company. So that's the reason why we're into different brands.
So it's not just one particular kind. But although looking at the portfolio now, I think all of them are actually food related, right?
Well, about 80% of our business now comes from food.
Out of all the babies that you have, Bunny, including Thirsty and Moon Cafe and the other restaurants, Lantau,
Top of Cebu.
which is your? I know it's difficult to choose a favorite child, right? But out of all the children that you have, who's your favorite?
I don't have a favorite, Jilly. If I say that, my kids will probably be sore at me
because each brand.
everyone is a favorite.
Okay.
But if you now ask, what is the one that is probably
Closest to your heart, maybe?
No, not closest, but the one that's probably some potential to growth right now. House
Okay.
of Lechon is the one because it's our newest. It's
Okay.
also hitting up too strong, despite the competition. So that's the one that we're growing, and Cheryl is handling that pretty well. Cheryl Alba, she's married to Jay
Okay.
Alba, and she's very focused in making that grow. So Charlie is also working on Lantau. We're opening several branches. We've also franchised in Bohol and Dumaguete, and we've franchised House of Lechon in Bohol, which will open before the end of this year. So, in other words, I'm letting this grow and blossom individually based on the capability of each of the children and what they want to do, and working with me.
Out of all the businesses, I'm sure you've already observed, looking back at your portfolio, Bunny, what do you think makes a business succeed, and what makes a business fail? I'm sure I'm sure you also have failure stories, right? Not just success stories.
A lot.
So let's do the first. Let's do the success first. What makes you think makes a business succeed?
Okay, well, there's a concept that's called. Actually, it's written in a book. It's a blue ocean strategy, as against a red ocean strategy. Now, simply put, if you operate in a business environment where it's so bloody, it's so full, it's so
Cutthroat competition.
cutthroat competition, it's like the ocean is full of sharks. You jump in there, you get beaten. It's so bloody. There's red blood. So there's a concept that's called blue ocean, where you try to operate in an atmosphere where the sea is serene. It's not very occupied yet, and in a way, when we started into business, that's, I don't know, I did it unwittingly, but eventually I just read this book and I said, okay, this has been what we're doing. And since that time, whenever my kids bring up something and they will say, Dad, why don't we take a look at this business opportunity? I would say, is that blue ocean or red ocean? Even if we go into it and we know it's red ocean, so we need to just see, okay, where can we have a distinction and where can we make a difference? Because you have to be different in some way. I mean, you don't have to be first, but you have to be different, right? So, like, take a look, some examples, very clear examples. Look at Lantau. When we opened in Cordova, floating restaurant. I mean, when you think about it, that's a faraway place. But despite that, people still go. So because it's different, it's actually blue ocean. There was none like that there.
Mm-hmm.
When we opened top of Cebu, it was so different. People go up there and the view. There are now several other restaurants beside it, but still, we got the best view and hopefully the best food and the most competitive prices. When we opened Thirsty, it was the first, although there were several others that opened. So
you're trying to say that to succeed in a business, it has to be blue ocean. It has to be an area, a sector of society, a kind of business that there's not too many players yet.
correct,
Or,
and
new.
you can actually be the best at that particular category.
Okay.
Which is very, very challenging.
But
of
if you
course.
think about it, buddy, isn't the restaurant and the food industry kind of a red ocean category already? There's so many players. There's
It
so
is,
many...
but you can open a category.
Okay.
Like Charlie, who is, I consider a whiz really in our company, because
Okay.
he brought us the food business, and he is continually developing the concepts and the ideas and the menus right now. When he opened a Cafe Razor, I'm sure you've been there.
Of course.
And a lot of people go there every night, especially weekends. That's that's a food business. That's sort of a coffee shop type of business, but that's blue ocean. I mean, no one was doing it. When we opened top of Cebu, it's different. It's really different. Even in Cordoba, Moon Cafe, when we opened Moon Cafe in 2007, we were the first at it. So that we were conscious of it, and every time we open something now, we're conscious.
Okay.
Like I'll tell you, Jiggy, we're opening soon, hopefully in October, a food park in Talisay, in Lawaan, Talisay. We're calling it Yahay. Yahay was very windy there, so the concept is very different. In fact, I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning to drive over there, and it took me a long, long time to get back. But the thing is, that is going to be a blue ocean type of thing. There are several food parks, but that's very different in terms of design, in terms of the feel. So as long as you're conscious that you're operating into something or an area that's not so common, you can make yourself a distinction and different, then you have a bigger chance of succeeding.
Okay, that's how you assess whether you can succeed or not. Go into a category that perhaps is not full of players yet, or in your.
Or you're different. You have to be different, because if you go into a category where you're just like the same as everyone else, it's very difficult.
Bloody. It's very bloody.
Very bloody, very difficult to stand out, and it's going to be very costly on your part.
Okay, looking back at all your failures, buddy, what do you think makes a business fail?
Well, first of all, again, maybe that strategy of going into a red ocean, very,
Okay.
very cutthroat. Secondly is location is very important. Location. We made several mistakes, like when you are offered to pick on a spot on a mall or a location that hasn't opened yet, and you think you pick on the best location. So when the whole mall opens, the traffic is so different from what you thought or what you were told it was going to be. So that is also a cause for failure, because you see, bad location is very important. Like even if you move a spot just a few meters from the original spot, it already could change the whole structure of the whole thing. So location is very important. And also, I think your failure to keep on improving your product and your service. What has happened, I think, with many businesses, and I've seen this many times, and I really try to avoid it, is that many people, when their businesses start to rise and they become better, they also tend to relax. They play golf, or they just leave it for somebody else to run. what we've been trying to do is when a business starts, we try to focus on it and to continue to build on the momentum. You see, momentum is everything. Momentum is forward motion. Once you lose momentum in a business or in life or anything that you do, it's very difficult to get it back. So when you have momentum, you need to just continually do it, like even changing the signs, changing your menu. Just to give you an example, like our House of Lechon in Acacia Street, that's near Ayala. So we had a small signage there beside Infinity. Infinity, just a small signage because Infinity was open. Then one day when I passed that place there, I saw Infinity was closed. So I said, okay, I tried to get the owner. I couldn't get in touch with anybody. So I just told our designer, said, can you prepare for us a really bigger design, bigger one, and then new design. So we just put a new bigger sign there. It said, Taste Cebu, very nice. And that in itself, right away, just sales increased. So those are the small things that you do in your
Constant
business.
improvement.
Constant improvement. The Japanese have a term for this. You must have heard about it. Kaizen.
Kaizen, yeah.
Kaizen. So I continually practice Kaizen, and I try to remind all our people, guys, even if it's a small improvement, just do it. Constant, as long as it's constant. And there's a new book right now by Jim Collins. Jim Collins is this guy who's one of the foremost writers in the world. The first book he wrote was Good to Great, or maybe Built to Last. Good to Great is one of my favorites. And he wrote another book, Great by Choice. And now he wrote another book. It's about Flywheel. One of the things that he wrote there in the Good to Great is you should look at your business like pushing a flywheel. You know, a flywheel is something that's a huge, like a round thing, maybe metal. And in the beginning, it's zero. There's no momentum. You keep on pushing it and turning it. And gradually, as it turns, you build momentum in it. It gets easier to push. And later on, there comes a point when you don't have to really exert a lot of effort, and it turns. Now, the question is, was there a particular push that made the difference? There's none. Every push that you made to turn that flywheel is actually has been a contributory force to make that flywheel continue its momentum. It's the same with business. Everything and anything that you do that will help your business become what it is and to improve it and to continue to build momentum helps in the push.
Have you ever come across a situation, Ban, that there's no more improving? That I'm done here, you know, like I can't improve on this anymore. I've reached perfection. In other words, or relative perfection. Have you ever gone into a situation like that?
Never. I don't think so. I'll tell you something. When we bought Thirsty 20 years ago, and John was saying, my son John, because we worked on it together, he said, John, let's open more. I said, Daddy, we cannot because we haven't mastered this business yet. I said, don't worry, we'll learn along the way. And would you believe 17 years, 20 years later, we're still learning every day?
Okay.
Like on the way here, I went to Robinson's and went to one of our outlets there. I said, okay, so I saw this sign there, please order here, really crooked. So what I did was I just fixed it. So, I mean, these are things, the small things. And
So you've never come across a situation wherein there's no more improving, that there's no more improvement to be made?
No.
Because
I don't think that will ever happen.
I think it was Bruce Lee who once said that perfection is not when there's no more to add. Perfection is when there's no more to take away. When you are left with your bare essentials, that is perfection. So I'm wondering, Bunny, like you have never, ever in your life come across a situation when you think you've achieved everything in that particular field and move on to the next? There was never a situation like that?
No, but moving to the next maybe. But saying that you'd move because you perfected it, I don't think so. But that's where I think the difference between a fixed-minded person and a growth-minded person.
Okay.
A growth-minded person is constantly trying to find ways to improve, even if there's none. So it's a mindset. To me, it's a mindset.
Very interesting mindset. Constant improvement.
Yeah, for those who want to check this book, just Google Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. The author is Dr. Carol D. Weck.
Okay. This is a random question, Bunny, and
Sure.
and I think this is an interesting question. Isn't it stressful to constantly improve? Don't you just wish you can just sit there and enjoy the moment and just perhaps know that you can still improve, but I'm happy where I am now. I mean, like, I'm happy where everything is right now. Isn't it stressful for you? Isn't it stressful to be Bani Pahes? It seems like it.
Does it seem like it?
No, it doesn't look like it. It just seems, well, listening to you constantly improving seems a little bit stressful. I'm
You're
getting,
the-
I'm
you're the
getting,
one who's getting
I'm getting
stressed.
stressed now. Just listening to you. I'm just kidding, man. But what do you think? What do you think?
Well, if I look at myself over the years, maybe that's my strongest motivation.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
not, it's not money, it's not material things, although they motivate. But I think the biggest motivator of all is to constantly improve and become better at what I do. And I remember there were times in my life when I thought that I wouldn't improve anymore, and I stopped. To give you an example, I used to play tennis, and I used to play singles, a better singles player than a double singles player. So there was a time when I was maybe feeling a little bit old already, and my body was starting to ache, and I knew I couldn't improve anymore. So I stopped and I did something else. I think it's the same with basketball. I started late in basketball, and when I knew I couldn't improve anymore because it was too taxing, I stopped and I switched to tennis. So now I'm doing something else. I do running, I do calisthenics, I do treadmills, I do a little weight. So I think me personally, and I don't recommend it for everybody, and maybe yes. If I see something that I cannot improve anymore, then I move to somewhere else that I can still improve on.
So what do you do with that thing that cannot be improved anymore?
I just tell myself, okay, I'm done with that, and let's do something else where I can improve. So it's my biggest motivation. Like I think I can still improve my ability to speak.
Okay.
And I'm taping myself, and I give speeches all the time, and I know that I'm just maybe 50% or 60% of where I can be.
So you mean to say, Bunny, if you're constantly improving on everything, every facet of your life, especially, for example, the speaking part, if you listen to yourself, let's say 10 years ago or 20 years ago, would that be a completely and a totally different speaker as you are now? Would you think so?
That's strange. Not that much,
Okay.
but there were areas that I have improved,
Okay.
and I know there will be areas that I can still improve.
Like if you don't mind me sharing, if you don't mind you sharing to me and to our viewers what that small thing that you saw improvement from the Bani Pahes 10 years ago, for example, in terms of speaking.
Yeah, there were some words that I used to mispronounce.
Okay, like which one?
Like as a matter of fact.
Okay.
So I didn't pronounce the T
The
very
T.
very
you,
well.
You didn't cross the T.
I didn't cross the T very well.
Okay.
There were areas that maybe, especially, I wasn't good in reading.
Okay.
Like if I were to read an introduction,
Ah, you mean like you don't want to read from a script or
I
something?
don't want to read from a.
Yeah.
I'm better off by extemporaneous.
Exactly,
In
yeah.
fact, if you notice,
Yeah.
whenever I interview someone on stage, I don't bring a piece of paper, and
Yeah.
I don't look. It comes very naturally. I think it was because when I was in sales, one of the
The
things
pitch, right?
yeah, one of the, not a pitch, but one of the things we were really told is that you have to be a really good salesperson. You have to ask more questions than make statements. So everything that I did when I was selling was always on questions. In fact, there was a training program that we had. We had a prospect and a salesperson, and there was the spotlight was one spotlight. Whenever the salesperson talks about himself or his company, the spotlight goes to him instead of the prospect. But every time he asks the question to the prospect, like, Mr. Prospect, would you mind telling me what is most important in your life? So the spotlight is on the prospect. And the more the spotlight goes to the prospect, the better able he is of closing that sale. So I was trained for so many years. I was in the life insurance industry for almost 24 years, selling life insurance and training salespeople. So to me, asking questions is a very natural process. I'm not used to being asked. So I feel a little uncomfortable right now, you interviewing me instead of me interviewing
That's
you.
why you were asking me all the questions off the air, right?
Yes.
It seems like you've just told us your life philosophy, right? Or your business philosophy. Are they one and the same, Bunny? Your business and your life philosophy, have they become one? And aside from constant improvement, aside from Kaizen you mentioned, what else is your life or your business philosophy?
Yeah, very important thing. One of my important philosophies, one of the things that I really is be curious, not suspicious. Can I say that again?
Yeah.
Be curious, not suspicious.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is, if something or somebody brings up a suggestion or an idea to me, I am never going to be suspicious about that idea or that person. I always want to know more. Like my children, they always bring up ideas to me. Say, Daddy, why don't we go into this business, because this is a good business potential. I never cut them off. I don't suspect there's to be a hidden agenda there. I always say, okay, let's find out and discuss, talk about more, study more, and we'll discuss. And eventually, if it's not going to be a good business, it will just fall off the place. But the trouble is, I think most people don't give ideas or suggestions enough leeway or enough process. They just cut them off. I'm not that kind of a person. I believe that I'm a developmental person. I want ideas to be developed some more. And along the way, things can be just determined whether they're really viable or not. So, again, let me go back. Be curious, not suspicious.
That's sort of your business philosophy.
That's, I think, a very important part. Another one is that it's better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So in some way, I'm always preparing myself, studying, learning.
So you're constantly improving, you're constantly learning. A lot of people, especially if they've achieved a certain amount of success, don't give luck much credit. Where do you think, in the success of Bani Pajes, where do you think luck plays? Is as successful as you are now? Did luck play a huge part, or it was just all you? It was all hard work.
Okay, very, very valid question. There's this guy, again, I want to go back to Jim Collins. He wrote about this. I remember chapter 14 of his book.
Wow, okay. You remember the chapter?
Yeah, I remember the chapter.
The page?
Yeah, I can't remember the page, but I remember the chapter. I think it's chapter 14 of his third book. It's called Great by Choice. He wrote an article there, ROL, Return on Luck. And it was called by so many business experts as one of the most important ideas of the 20th century. He believes that based on his study and research, that people who succeed in life are people who actually maximize the return on their luck. All of us get lucky, and I'm sure it's the same when you look back on your life. There were situations, there were cases where you became lucky. You had luck, but possibly you were not able to turn that luck into more opportunities.
More luck.
Or maximize the return on that luck.
Okay.
So what Jim Collins, you might want to check, or our listeners, our watchers might want to check it out. It's called ROL.
So
return on luck.
So you get lucky, and then what do you do with that luck?
You get lucky. Let's say you have a lucky opportunity. Like, we're so lucky to be able to build a restaurant at the top of Cebu.
Okay. So
this
what do you
was-
do with that luck?
So you need to just put in everything that you have. You need to put in all your resources, your time, your money, your effort, your heart, your passion into it, to make sure that you don't miss out on that lucky break. And the trouble is, as I said,
Is that what ROL means?
that's ROL, return on luck.
So if you get lucky with something, you pour everything on that.
You pour everything into it and
Okay.
and really just put it everything. And I have a conversion of that.
Okay.
I call it ROB.
Okay.
Return on blessings. I think the thing is, so many people are blessed with
Okay.
so many parents who are rich. They're intelligent. They have the talent and everything, but they squander their blessings. So I'd like to think that I'm very conscious of my blessings, and these are blessings that can be taken away.
So again, back to the question: how much of your success now is because of luck?
A large part.
And do you think there was like a moment when you got lucky that just led to the momentum that you have now?
Of course. Like, for
Yeah.
example, I feel lucky that my children are good
Okay,
people.
okay.
Very talented. They're very passionate. To me, that's luck. But if I were not to deal with them properly, if I were to just take advantage of the situation and I don't deal with that with that situation properly, then I sort of waste my luck.
Okay.
So I'm very conscious of my children. I respect them, I love them, and I listen to them, and I to encourage them. And when I see something that they're not also doing correctly, I correct them and I talk to them. And to me, that's part of maximizing your return on luck.
So you got lucky because you have great children.
To me, that's part of luck. That's
Of course, absolutely.
that's a
That's a
blessing.
blessing, yeah, of
That's a
course, yeah,
blessing.
yeah.
That's a blessing. So,
Absolutely.
and the unfortunate thing is many people really squander their luck, squander their blessings. So to me, if there's any lesson that we can learn today, is the fact is, if you have a blessing, make sure that you maximize the return on that blessing by focusing, by putting it your attention and not squandering it.
You're familiar with the saying that you can't have everything, right? And no matter how successful you are, you can't have everything.
I agree.
What did Bani Pajes have to give up to succeed? Did you have to give up on something or someone to succeed to get to where you are right now?
That's not an easy question,
I know.
Jiggy.
That's why it's called the Pilosopo podcast. What did Bani Pajes have to give up to succeed?
Well, there's a price for everything.
Exactly. There's always a price to pay.
There's no way you have to pay the price. And I think the price is the discipline, getting up early in the morning, working and enjoying. But as long as you enjoy, I can say I haven't really worked a day in my life because I enjoy what I do. But I don't know. I think I'm okay. I think there's always a fair price to pay for everything that you do. So that's basically, well, in some way my health suffered a few years ago because I did not take the medicine that the doctor told me. So, but I take good care of myself. I lost about 20 pounds along the way, and I've been able to maintain my weight in the last.
You had a
2
little
years.
health scare, right?
No, I had, because all of a sudden I was way back in late 2016. I had a shortness of breath, and there was something wrong with my EKG. So I had a 2D echo, I had an angiogram, and
So you're okay now.
I had to go into an angioplasty.
So maybe that's the price you had to pay to succeed. Maybe like your heart got a little.
No, but maybe you should stop saying succeed, Jiggy, because I don't consider myself successful.
Which brings me to my next question.
It's really.
Do you think Bani Pajes has already succeeded? Do you think yourself a success story already?
No. The story continues, and when people ask me, I tell the story, and somewhere along the way, and I hope they learn. Like I got a chance to talk to about 80 entrepreneurs last weekend, which is sponsored by DTI, and I just told them the story. I said, the story continues, and along the way we keep on learning, and what I can do is I can share with you the things that I've learned since that time.
Not having money is always the excuse to not go into a business and an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I think I can imagine you working in the insurance business for 24 years. You probably had saved up a little bit to purchase, let's say, a Thirsty franchise, right? Which you bought at a fairly good low price, right? At that time, is not having the resources, the capital, an excuse? Is it a good excuse not to be an entrepreneur?
Well, I think money is something that you can not too very difficult to raise if you have an idea that's workable, because you can get a partner, you can borrow money, and of course we borrowed money too. I mean, everybody borrows, and that's what you call using other people's money.
Okay.
You pay a certain interest as long as you can pay, and there's nothing wrong with that. Huge businesses, they also leverage themselves really well because it's cheaper to borrow than if you were to use your own resources. But I don't think that should be the main reason why you shouldn't go into business. I think the idea, the willingness, and to take the risk, and of course, I think some people are wired to just do it. And I just realized that when I go into something, I don't get scared. It's weird. I don't get scared as long as I am focused.
So that moment when you quit the insurance business and opened your first
thirsty
branch,
yeah.
you weren't scared?
No,
It was John who was scared, right?
I don't know. Maybe the kids. I don't know. The children, they're probably scared.
Where does that confidence come from? Where does not being scared come from, Bunny?
I don't know, Jiggy. I don't know. Maybe prayers are important
Okay.
part of it, but
Okay.
they don't solve everything.
Okay.
I think I have a very simple prayer, and I always ask, Lord, if this is for us, make it easy. If this is not for us, make it difficult.
Prayer.
Yeah,
Okay.
a prayer, but I have a very simple prayer I want to share.
Okay, go ahead.
If you don't mind, it's only 3 sentences. God is with me. God is helping me. God is guiding me.
Okay, this is the
Okay,
Pilosopo.
let me repeat that. God is with me.
you.
No, God is with me. God is helping me. God is guiding me.
Okay.
And I've been using this prayer since I was maybe in high school. My grandmother Lula Taling shared it with me. I don't know where she got it. I've shared it with many people, and it has helped me a lot. God is with me. God is helping me. God is guiding me.
What is your concept of a deity, of a God, Bunny? And we obviously have spoken several times already about the subject matter. I want to get back to that because this would not be the Pilosopo podcast without a conversation about God. What is your idea of who you're praying to, the God who's with you, who's preparing you, and who's always constantly helping you? What is your concept of a God? How does he look like? Does he have a beard? Is he male? Is he female? Is he black? Is he white? Is he Filipino? What's your concept of a deity?
I don't have. But I believe in God.
Okay.
I don't know. It's beyond comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond comprehension. No, I really think as long as you try to do the right things, be fair to people, keep your word, and follow your conscience to a large extent, keep your promises. I think the universe, I want to call it the universe. In fact, one of the things that I really believe in, the universe likes speed.
They like speed.
Yeah, the universe, maybe God also likes speed. So
Speed. You
speed
mean
in the sense
fast.
speed of action, speed of making decisions.
Why does God like speed?
Because God is not a dilly-dally God. I
Okay.
think God wants you to succeed.
Really
God
now?
wants,
Okay.
God wants you to make something of yourself.
do it now.
And do it now. Do
Okay.
it now.
Okay.
Because it may be too late.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, opportunities only knock once. I've got this concept that I want to share. It's called closing open loops.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that I had it, but I sort of learned some more about it. I got it again from a book
Okay.
written by the foremost writer of productivity. His name is David Allen. This is the guy who wrote Getting Things Done. And he wrote a second book, Ready for Anything. And it's about the concept on closing open loops. An open loop, Jiggy, is anything that's pending, hanging, or a promise that you've made that's still unfulfilled. Like when you texted me a few days ago that we need to redo this this interview. We had one like this about a month ago, and I was waiting for it. I said, when will this come out? I said, okay. It turned out really, really bad. So
Yeah.
you texted me, and I got the tone. Okay. Now,
So it was an open loop.
to me, when I got that text, it was an open loop.
Okay.
And I said,
Oh, I
okay.
have to do it again. Oh no.
No, it wasn't that,
Okay.
but it was something that I had to get back to you.
Okay.
So when I said, okay, I'll do it. I mean, it's always a pleasure to talk to Jiggy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's hopefully a lot of people watch it and benefit from it. So I had to make a decision. So I said, okay, I'm available at this particular day, and then I'll meet you at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at a certain place. So I said, I'll be there 5 minutes earlier.
Okay.
But because of the traffic, I did a lot of other things. I said,
Okay.
okay, I'll leave an hour the office earlier, and I visited just the several outlets along
Okay.
the way.
So you
I just closed that open loop.
Okay.
And I do that my whole waking hours, always closing open loops in my own mind. If this is something that's lacking or pending, I do it. And I tell you, it's so much of a stress reliever by closing open loops. A person who has so many unfulfilled promises, so many unfulfilled commitments, and so many open loops gets stressed so much.
But
And
is
I'm not stressed because I actually don't. I hardly have any open loops
But
in my life.
you mentioned that you keep on trying to close your open loops, even and at home, in the privacy of your home,
yes,
after work.
yes, all the time.
But isn't that in itself kind of stressful because you're constantly thinking about it?
It's exciting. No, if you keep on thinking about it, it's stressful.
Yeah.
But if you close those open loops by taking action,
Okay.
either by making a call, sending an email, or sending a Viber, or texting, then you actually eliminate those stresses on your life to a
okay,
large extent.
okay.
So when opportunities come, you're actually ready to take on because you're focused.
Okay.
You're not distracted with so many things. So that's what I constantly do all the time, closing open loops all the time. I don't know if our listeners would understand that completely, but the thing is, again, I want to repeat, an open loop is anything that's pending, a promise that you haven't made, that you should probably have done some time ago or yesterday. So once that's done and closed, it sort of rids your subconscious mind with a burden
Yeah.
and a bother,
Yeah, like
then
for-
you're ready for to do more things in your life.
Yeah, I remember there was I have a car in the shop and it's still there and it's
Even up to today.
yeah
So what's lacking in it?
exactly
To order
So
the part, or
yeah, something like that,
and it
then
keeps on bothering you, right?
exactly. So it's one of those open loops, right?
Right.
So you either have to just get rid of the car or finish the damn thing, right?
Correct. Or throw it away, or just give it away.
Otherwise, it's gonna occupy space in your mind.
Yeah, it never, the subconscious mind doesn't know whether it's real or not. And the trouble is now
That's very important. The subconscious mind does not know whether something is real or not, right?
imagined.
Or
Right,
imagined,
imagined.
right? So it accepts it, processes it, says it the same way, right? Whether it's
yeah, but
real or
it
imagined, right?
occupies, like if this were a
Same
RAM,
space,
like
right?
if it were a computer, it has a memory,
Okay.
RAM. If that keeps on occupying your subconscious mind, it keeps on bothering you, and you're not able to focus, and you're not able to do things that are even more important than those
Whether
things.
it's imagined or not,
So
doesn't matter.
regarding that car, you just give it away.
Yeah, exactly.
And that happened to me. Like I bought a Mercedes-Benz, an old one in 1971 Mercedes-Benz from a friend. I bought it for a certain amount. I fixed it, and I just couldn't finish it. And I said, you know what I did? I just called a friend of mine who likes Mercedes-Benzes. I gave it to him. No, I mean, to me, that's out of my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
But as long as it was there, and I saw that all the time, it just kept on bothering me. So, and that happens to me a lot. Just better give it away. And maybe.
Buddy, what is your best failure? What is the failure that has taught you the most?
Personal or business?
Both. Let's do personal. Let's do business.
Well, let's just do business.
Why not personal? Let's do both. Come on. Let's do business first. Go ahead.
Let's do business.
Okay.
Let me see. There's so many that I can't think of one. Okay, we opened a shawarma business several years ago. Thirsty was always beside this
Shawarma place. Yeah.
business owned by a friend of ours, Steve Benitez.
Okay.
And it
That was his. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. I forgot the name, but shawarma.
It was shawarma.
It was shawarma.
Which is called shawarma.
It was
I think.
shawarma, right?
Yeah.
So it was so full. It's always
Okay.
lined up. So I said, why don't we open one? We did.
Okay.
We opened 5 outlets, and we made a mistake. We made a mistake in our costings. We didn't compute very well that when you buy the meat, it actually shrinks by 30-40%. So our
Okay.
costings. So we were selling pretty well, but I just said, how come we're not generating any cash at all? You know, it's just we made so little money. So we realized that we made a mistake. So we couldn't make money out of it. So we just one day we just closed all the outlets. So since that time on, we're more particular about our costings.
Okay.
So you always learn from your mistakes. One time I went into the tire repair business with a partner. It did very, very well in the beginning, but later on we ran out of tires to fix. So we just had to close it and give it away. So many failures, Jiggy. And you learn something from your failure. I'll tell you, I'm happy to close a business than to open one. I mean, it's the same thing because you stop the leak. If you make a mistake, guy, don't let your ego get the better of you. Close it.
You know, Bunny, Cebu is a city of entrepreneurs. We have so many entrepreneurs and so many entrepreneur wannabes, or so many entrepreneurs who want to succeed in their business. What's your advice to those who would like to be as successful as Bunny Paheso, to be an entrepreneur extraordinaire just like you?
Go for it, guy. Go for it. Don't be scared, especially if you're young, and take a risk. And if you see a good business opportunity, study it, go for it, but be sure that you are willing to build an organization behind it. Because you cannot grow if you don't build an organization. You know, we started with one person. Now we are 1,000 strong. I remember our first month when we opened the school and we started Thirsty, we had about 30 people in our Christmas party. Well, in last December, we couldn't even fit in one gym because we had over 1,000 people there. So in some way, we have grown. And it's because of the idea of constantly growing the business.
And the organization.
And
behind
the
it.
organization.
So, but I'm just the person that we might be talking to right now is probably, or listening to this interview right now, is probably like just starting out, maybe just 1 or 2 people. What do you tell that person or persons, those 2 people?
Okay, first, don't go into a business that you cannot grow big. Let me repeat that. Don't go into a business that you cannot grow big because you're wasting your time. a big business will take the same amount of time as a small business, believe it or not. The only difference is you have better people, more people in a big business. And now that our businesses have grown and we have expanded, I still have a lot of time for myself to travel and spend time with my family. So the key is have the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. I mean, those words taken from, again, Jim Collins' book, Good to Great.
That's one of the most difficult things to do, right? Finding the right people. Do you have like a secret recipe? How do you know if that's the right person for your business, the right person for your organization?
It's very, very challenging. Like we're
Is
trying
it
to.
luck also?
Well, I guess it's blessing too.
Okay.
So when you have good people, you have to make sure that you take good care of
But
them.
how do
too.
you find the needle in the haystack?
Well, first of all, you have to be attractive too. I mean, your reputation has to precede you that
Okay.
you're a good employer, you take good care of your people, so you attract good people. Because if you're not, you also cannot attract good people. But I tell you, as the economy will become better and the economy will become better, hopefully in the next few years, it will be more and more challenging to get better people. So, but the key, I had several hours with Dr. Norberto Kisumbing,
Yeah, yeah.
the great entrepreneur, the titan, and I asked him, NQ, I call him NQ, what's the the critical part of growing a business? He said, it's really people. And that's key, people. So that's a challenge, I guess. I'm sure every entrepreneur
So
who is listening
do you
to
have
us.
like a way?
Well, we have a human resource
Okay.
department that's about composed of 8
Well,
people. Right now.
ultimately, you have to. You're one of the decision makers,
Yeah, for the major positions.
So how do you
we
know if
decide.
that's the right person for the job?
You don't, but you can have certain criteria. Like
Okay.
we're looking for people who are personable, who are charming, who are smiling, because we are in the people business, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're in the hospitality business. And what I've noticed now is I'm also saying, okay, let's get people who move fast, who are fast mover. We don't want to get people who don't have the energy, because energy is so important, and energy also is something that can be trained, that's doable. So as long as you stick to certain basics that you're looking for, people who have energy, the intelligence, and the passion, and are willing to learn, I think those are the main ingredients that you would be looking at people. But again, I want to repeat, looking for the right people, the best people, is always or will constantly be a challenge, Jiggy. So take good care of the best people you have.
What's your prognosis for Cebu, for entrepreneurs like you? Do you think you'll have more business to open in the next few years, Bunny? Do you think there'll be more people like you who will also venture into some sort of business, be it in the food industry or maybe in the whatever industry? What are your thoughts? What do you think looking forward, Bun?
Cebu is a very entrepreneurial city, as what you said, and the province is very entrepreneurial. One thing good right now is the Department of Trade and Industry, headed by Secretary Mon Lopez, and all the secretaries, undersecretaries, and the department and the regional heads are really promoting Go Negosyo right now. So there's a program that they actually accept trainees or mentees, and there's so many volunteers like mentors. I'm a mentor. I get a chance to talk, and I'm usually the first speaker. And it's a 12-week module, and the first speech is about mind setting. So I'm the one who usually speaks to all these 25 or 30 entrepreneurs that they train. These are people who had been in business for about a year or more. And so they're being taught the basics of business, marketing, innovation, even taxes, even operations and forms and everything. So it's a very good training program, and I think it's helping. I understand they've trained about 20,000 employers, sort of entrepreneurs now throughout the country. The head of this is Joey Concepcion, who's the presidential advisor of the Philippines of the president on entrepreneurship. So I think the future is good as long as the government will provide the right atmosphere and the ambience for making the playing field as fair as possible, Jiggy. So I'm optimistic for Cebu. But again, guys, I think the only way that you can really have a very, very more prosperous life is to go into business by yourself and to let that business grow.
Do you think Bunny Pies will ever stop improving? Do you think Bunny Pies will ever stop growing as a person?
No, no, Jiggy. That's not gonna happen.
So the moment you stop improving, that's probably the moment that you're dead, right? Whether you're still physically alive or
right.
not.
We don't know when that would be, but I can assure you and everybody and my children and my grandchildren that I'll be here to continue and continue to become better.
There's a lot of people watching this interview right now, Ban, and they'd like to know what book to pick up, aside from listening to this interview, of course, they can kickstart their being an entrepreneur.
I think the basic book that you should read is a book that's been there for many, many years. It's a book by Dale Carnegie. It's a 1936 book. I think
1936,
but the principles are the same.
almost 100 years old.
I know, almost 100 years old. The title is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay.
I think that's very, very important. That's number one, how to win friends and influence people. The second book that you should read is probably a 1950 book
Wow.
by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. It's called The Power of Positive Thinking. And the third book that you should probably look at is The Secret. This is the
Secret.
law of attraction.
Okay.
What you think about the most happens to you. So if you think about certain things that
So
you
those three books have
and
great
then-
helped you to a large extent.
great help to me, and the magic of thinking big. Many books, and I wrote an article about this several years ago in Sun Star. I mean, the books that have helped change my life, because I didn't have the confidence in myself. And another one is the Effective Executive by Drucker,
Peter Drucker.
Peter Drucker.
Okay.
So all those books have influenced me. So if you can say, okay,
These were the books that you were reading before you ventured into the world of entrepreneurship.
Definitely. So I didn't know that. So I was sort of preparing myself. So as I said, it's better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So in some way, somebody up there, the universe or God, has been preparing me to be an entrepreneur, because those were the books that I was reading. I hardly read a novel in my life. Would you believe?
Like a fiction novel,
The
right?
only novel that I read was the Da Vinci Code.
The
The only one. So I wasn't reading novels. I was reading self-improvement books
or
business books
or nonfiction, right?
or non-fiction books. So personality development, biographies. So those are the things that shaped my life. And of course, people, the influences, Dr. Norberto Quisumbing, who sort of encouraged me to go into business. So if you want to be somebody who is maybe can develop yourself into a really good entrepreneur, so you probably have to go through these things that I have gone through.
What is the one thing that you should never do? Looking back at all the mistakes that you've made, what's the one thing that you should not do in opening a business and being an entrepreneur? What's one thing that you should never ever do?
Not to try.
Don't try.
Yeah, I guess
Is it what it is?
if you don't try, if you don't go ahead and do it, then you can never start it.
Okay.
So never not to try. And when you are into it, you need to just work like hell. You forgive me for using the word hell to keep on improving it. So do not think that it will become perfect before you start. Just go ahead and do it, and then adjust along the way and keep on adjusting. It's like a torpedo. Like a torpedo, you release a torpedo, but it keeps honing on the target, and it's like that. To me, constantly, there's always this constant thoughts of how to keep on improving and making adjustments. Like every time we have a guest in one of our restaurants that reserved through us, we always get back to that person and say, Jiggy, how was your dining experience? Do you want to make suggestions or things that you want to complain about? We'll listen, and then we talk about and see how we can improve. Always constant. So I guess the one important factor is, again, go back to the constant improvement, no matter how small they are.
Never not try.
Never not try, Jiggy. Never not try.
So-
but of course, you have to calculate your risks.
Yes, of course. But one of the things that blew me away about you, Ban, in our previous meeting, in our previous conversation, was there's not a venture that you have that has a project study. You don't do project studies.
We don't.
Why is that? And how can you know your probability of failure or success if there's no project study? That's kind of mind-blowing, actually.
Well, a certain sense. Like top of Cebu, for example, I've been thinking about it. Why is it that there's no good restaurant there? I mean, so many people go there. They pay 100 pesos
To go to the tops,
just
right?
to go to the top, and there's really no good place to offer them. So if you open a restaurant there somewhere that has the same view, maybe not even the same, maybe a little bit
Similar,
less,
okay.
maybe a little bit less, but offer good food
Better
at
food.
reasonable prices and enjoy themselves, why not? And we've been proven right.
So you can never find that in a study, right? Even if you did study that, right?
You cannot. You cannot. The trouble is, of course, we also sometimes say, okay, we're over budget, and that happens a lot
Okay.
because Charlie is an artist. He's also a really expert entrepreneur.
An artist. I didn't
So-
know you're an artist, bro. An artist. What? Okay.
Charlie, I mean, look at his designs.
Okay.
So every
He takes pride in his designs,
He takes
yeah.
pride in his designs, but of course, you say, okay, Charles, this is taking a little bit of time. I said, I know that.
And money.
and money and money. Of course, every time there's a delay, it's money.
Okay.
The thing is, but when you look at the end product, it's also something different. Which, when you think about, you cannot hire a designer just out of the blue to come up with these designs. Cafe Racer, Top of Cebu, Lantau, and what are the other? Miss Mukono. And right now, when you go and visit our Yahai Food Park, which will open soon, I mean, it's beautiful. And it's when I went there this morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, just to drive maybe about 15, 20 kilometers away from the house. I look at it and said, I know how great and how talented Charlie is. I mean, how can we find a designer like this? But of course, it's taking a bit of time because when he goes there, there's some kind of an inspiration that he changes this and he makes this. So that's something that we have to pay for, and it's worth it.
I've already asked this question before, Bon, and I want to ask it again. What scares you? What are you most scared about? What is your biggest fear?
Yeah, well, we all fear something. Well, before it was to run out of money.
You were scared of to run out of money.
Yeah, I mean, I remember before many years ago when Microsoft was still not really the way Bill Gates said. My biggest fear is to run out of money because Microsoft is always 2 years away from bankruptcy.
Okay.
So any company, regardless of the size, if you don't take care of your business well, can go bankrupt. So that's scary. But one thing good is also if you're running scared, it also will prevent you from it happening.
Yeah. Fear is there for a reason, right?
Fear, as long as it doesn't
Paralyze you,
It doesn't paralyze you. So fear is not the absence of how do you call it? Courage is not the absence of fear, but it is how you manage fear, right?
Okay.
So fear is what is this? The definition of fear, but I can't forget. Is false events appearing real.
Okay.
So it's really imagined, but as long as you use fear in the positive way and it helps you prepare yourself for bad things to happen to you, I think that's the best. So me, the biggest fear is to
Run out of money.
run out of money.
Do you still have those fears? Do those kinds of fears still wake you up in the middle of the night these days, buddy?
Not wake up in the morning, but I still, of course, I get bothered.
Okay.
Because as I said,
Would you say that has helped motivate you to become who you are now and have had many successful businesses because maybe perhaps of that fear? Because they say that one of the biggest motivators is fear.
of course, as long as it doesn't.
So you think so? You think that fear has motivated you in many ways to succeed in life?
I think all entrepreneurs are motivated by fear too.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't be too overconfident, Jiggy. You cannot. Once you become overconfident or you becomes even confident, that's the start of your downfall.
But it's funny that you mentioned that because you said earlier that you're never scared. When you open a business, you're not scared. You're not. So, what do you mean by fear when in fact you're not scared when you open a business?
There's a difference.
Okay.
There's a difference. To me, being afraid, being fearful is a mindset.
Okay.
But once you decide to open a business, then you have to put in everything that you have. In other words, you don't open a business and get scared, which means that you have done through your homework, even though it's all mental.
Okay,
and
mental homework
and discussion.
Your mental project study.
This discussion with with the family members. Like
I
to give
guess
a-
that's your biggest project study, right? Your focus group discussion with your family members. That's why you don't need a project
yeah.
study.
To give you an example, this is not. Well, maybe I'll just put it out a little bit. Like Charlie looked at a lot in somewhere in Mactan, very nice location. It's not that big. So that's rent is this lot quite expensive. We'll negotiate. So we're not buying it. It's not for sale, but available for rental.
Okay.
So we talked to the owners this morning, so we're looking at the possibility of closing it. I said, Charles, what do we do with this lot? I said, Dad, we'll put up a sort of a type of sort of a fresh fish type of restaurant because there's none there. So without even computing how much it would cost, like the rental, we already agreed the space, and I said, okay, let's close that. So that's the way we do things.
Okay, okay.
Crazy, maybe nobody should follow it.
Yeah.
But that's how we do things. Like Cheryl will tell me, Dad, let's open a house of lechon somewhere in Mactan. So we're gonna look for the space. So we know that if we put up a house of lechon there in Mactan and it will be a good location, it's gonna do well. So we don't need a project study or a traffic count
Okay.
or a population or a demographics data information for that. So we know based on our experience that it will click.
It's always interesting, and I always have so many questions for you, Ban. But
This
I
is
think,
more confusing.
yeah, and we could go on forever talking about you, Ban. But I'm sure you're running out of time too, and all that stuff. So as a final question for you, Ban, what is what do you have up your sleeve? What can you divulge to our viewers and listeners out there? What's new with Pajes Holdings? Do you have anything new coming up that will be opening this year, or maybe perhaps early next year, that you can tell everybody about? At least those that you can reveal.
Well, first, the journey never stops.
Okay.
And my children know this, and I think in their own mindsets, the journey never stops. They keep on thinking what businesses we can go into. Well, first of all, we're opening we're, by the way, Lantau Busay closed several
Okay.
years ago because
Okay.
the lease wasn't continued.
Okay.
But we were able to get a new location, a better location. It's going to be right after Temple of Leah.
Okay.
We got a slot there that we are leasing for 10 years, and it's about 4,200 square meters. So Charlie now, I'm going to pass it on to Charlie. So I close the deals and help him out, but I just give it to him and said, Charlie, take care of this. So we're now making our final design. So hopefully we can start construction in the next month. And maybe in the next 8, 7 months, 10 months, we'll open a new Lantau Busay somewhere there. Now the food park is going to open in October. It will house about 30 different food concepts, and the plan is maybe about 20 or 25 of those concepts will be our own concept. Because you see, this is where the computation, even in the mind, works, Jiggy. Look, we have 30 food concepts available there, 40 like the food court. The rental, if we were to rent it out, would cost only maybe, let's say, 30,000 pesos a month. So if we had 30 and we rent out everything, the income there would just be 900,000 pesos a month. Our rental there is already 500,000 a month. And we don't make money. But if we were to open all our own concepts and hopefully sell well, then we can recover our investment. So the last word I want to mention to everybody is when you are in business, you have to be figure conscious.
Figure conscious. You mean like 36, 26, 38? No.
Not that.
What
in some
figure?
way, you have you have to constantly look at your sales,
Okay.
your cost of sales, your profits, your investment, your rate of return. And I think that's a trouble. Even the people that we've trained in the Go Negosyo, when they're done with their training, they don't look at their figures. Maybe it helped for the fact that I finished chemical engineering, and as engineers, we're trained to analyze figures. So you've got to be figure conscious now. Everything that you do will have to be validated by figures, and you have to analyze.
Be figures conscious.
Yeah, there's a saying that you cannot manage what you cannot measure.
Mr. Drucker said that, right?
I think so.
What gets measured gets managed.
Yes, or the other way is what doesn't get measured
Doesn't get managed.
doesn't get managed. So we have figures, like every day I have figures of how much all our sales are in all our outlets. At the 15th or 20th of the month, we have our financial statements. So at the end of the year, we analyze our figures. So you have to look at your information. You have to
Figures
look at your
don't
data.
lie.
Figures don't lie, and you have to face the brutal facts. If a business really can't make it, close it down.
Okay.
So I want to repeat: be figure conscious.
Ban, as a finale, what's the one best advice you ever took? And tell that to our viewers.
Go into business. And I got this from Dr. Norberto Kisambing
Okay.
Jr. Yeah, it's just go into business.
What was the context
It
in which
was
you said
always-
that? What was the context in which you said
Well,
that?
at the time, but it was, you don't have to wait too long like what I did. But be ready. Just prepare yourself and keep on thinking about the whole thing and it will just come. Practice the law of attraction. And the law of attraction says that if you feel good about yourself, then good things will happen to your life. So guys, when you wake up in the morning, make sure that you make yourself feel good because you're in control. I don't believe that say, I'm feeling really lousy this morning. I feel bad. I'm discouraged. And you can make yourself feel positive by reading a positive book, watching a tape that can help you become more positive. So if you feel good about yourself, chances are good things will happen to your life. And I try to make myself feel good all the time.
You make an effort.
Make an effort to feel
Feel
good
good,
because
yeah.
you're in control.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the saying feelings are neither good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that feelings are within your control. And when you feel good, Jiggy, when you're good to people and you generate the right kind of vibes with people,
Energy, yeah.
the right kind of energy and how you deal with people and how you look at them and how you deal with them, good things or better things will come to your life.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Bonnie Paez. Ladies
Thank
and
you,
gentlemen,
Jiggy.
unbelievable. Thank you so much.
Philosophy Podcast.
Thank you so much.
It's a
Ladies and
pleasure.
gentlemen,
Thank you.
entrepreneur extraordinaire, Mr. Bonnie Paez. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I hope I can talk to you soon. Maybe when you open your other stores, your other businesses, and all that stuff. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Jiggy.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
so much, guys.
everyone.
Thank
And good
you.
luck and God bless.